Welcome to The Insider, the ongoing video series that keeps you up to date on all things IPW. I am the voice of Independence Pro Wrestling, J-Rod. And Whiteout, the first big IPW event of the second half of the year, and this year's was awesome. We opened the event with a matchup between fan favorite Anderson Knight and IPW newcomer Elijah Eros. Despite Eros being an impressive, well-put-together athlete, he had the misfortune of drawing a top IPW contender in his debut match. Or so it would seem. A loss isn't always his detriment, as sometimes a competitor can show glimpses of greatness. While Anderson Knight did eventually slap out a very tight full Nelson submission he calls the nightcap, Elijah Eros showed tons of promise. Even Anderson was singing the praises of Eros after the match, going as far as saying that Eros could be a future champion in IPW. We look forward to seeing his growth. But as far as champions in IPW, Anderson Knight has crazy momentum right now, and he can't be too far off himself from a shot at IPW Gold. Whiteout was originally booked as a double main event. In the first of two, former IPW Michiana champion TDG would activate his rematch clause. Current champion Josh Raymond had to withdraw from the bout after testing positive for COVID. But TDG saw this as a blessing in disguise. In their title match, two referees would be present and both athletes were able to choose one. TDG chose referee Chris Young, but Josh Raymond chose his former best friend turned bitter rival Terry Van Avery, which shocked everyone. A confused TDG now was given a chance to ask Van Avery what the hell was up with that. Terry came to the ring and reminded TDG that the two of them have history together as well. While TDG was Michiana champion, Van Avery was IPW champion. They teamed up together against the current tag team champions a few months ago. Terry Van Avery helped TDG get hired at IPW. Van Avery said he had no clue why Josh Raymond chose him as a referee. But TDG wasn't buying it. Things got heated, and TDG eventually shoved Terry Van Avery. Whether the frustration was induced due to the shove or the accusations, Van Avery had enough and challenged TDG to a match. In a fast-paced whirlwind of a match, TDG would eventually roll Terry Van Avery up for the three. Afterwards, Van Avery turned his back to TDG and allowed him to take a free shot if he still didn't trust Van Avery. TDG declined and instead shook Van Avery's hand. It looks like Van Avery has earned TDG's trust. But this matchup had dire consequences. During the match, Van Avery hit a huge F5 on TDG. In absorbing this big move, TDG suffered a torn rotator cuff, and his match with Josh Raymond is off. It is clear now what Josh Raymond's intentions were. Instead of having to worry about TDG or Terry Van Avery, just get them to take each other out. And once again, Raymond's plan worked like a charm. Raymond continues to cause chaos in the Michiana Championship division of IPW. The IPW Women's Division continues to grow. Newcomer Carter Kaufman took on the Honey Badger, little Missy. Since leaving the GIP, Missy has grown herself a fan favorite, and they cheered her on as she hit the pounce and picked up a second straight dub. Since Jeremiah Nazareth returned to IPW, Max Morrison has been acting completely unhinged. Morrison came down to the ring to talk to the fans, and while we were hoping he would finally tell us what's been going on through his head and what he plans on doing, he instead went into some weirdo, incoherent rant about dark clouds and emotions. He was interrupted by his former forgotten brethren, Jarris Gray. Gray came out to tell Morrison that he is so happy that both he and Morrison are in a better place, and while Gray obviously isn't a part of Three Hearted, Gray still has Morrison's back if Jeremiah Nazareth comes after him. Morrison told Gray not to talk about Nazareth like that, to which a puzzled Gray called Nazareth another derogatory name, which seemed to get Morrison even more bent out of shape. Gray called Nazareth a douchebag, and that really sent Morrison over the edge. Max Morrison slapped Jarris Gray, and the two started fighting. Morrison told the referee to ring the bell, and an impromptu match began. Just like an uprising, Morrison showed remorse the entire time, apologizing, saying he needed to do what he was doing. This whole thing is extremely unsettling. In a lapse of concentration from Morrison, Jarris Gray nailed the twist of fate and put Max Morrison away, getting his first victory since returning to IPW. Gray, who only wanted to have Morrison's back in the first place, would help Morrison to his feet and give him a big hug. If you were hoping the twist of fate knocks some sense back into Morrison, you were wrong. Morrison slammed Jarris Gray to the mat, then left the ring to a chorus of boos. This dude needs to get Jeremiah Nazareth out of his head before it's too late, or maybe it already is. The second half of the show popped off with Big Jorge and the Colonel of Clapping Cheeks, LaDon Sanders. We've seen these two fight over and over again, and we will never get tired of it. Just like all the others, this was a scrap. When both guys were down, the terrorizing music of Invictus hit the speakers, and the monster slowly walked to the ring with his eyes fixated on Big Jorge. Just as Invictus got to the ring, Dragon Jones came through the crowd and blindsided Invictus. Invictus and Jones would brawl at ringside all the way to the back, and while Jorge was breathing a sigh of relief that he didn't just get murdered by Invictus, he forgot about LaDon Sanders, who clapped Big Jorge's cheeks for the win. It looks like the saga with Invictus and Dragon Jones continues, but now Big Jorge is right in the middle of it. The group continues to grow. Now there's one more. Hexus 2 and a debuting Hexus 4 came to the ring for tag team action. They took on the consensus greatest IPW tag team of all time, Real Hype. We haven't seen Jimmy Shalwin and Mondo Real in tag team action since they had to forfeit the tag titles months ago. They looked awesome and were able to put away the Hexuses, Hexi, whatever the hell they're called, and put House Bison on notice. House Bison actually holds a record in IPW now. Nobody has ever won a title this long with 0 defenses in IPW history. And I said a while ago that management needs to get a hold of this thing before it gets out of control, and it definitely has. As for the Hexuses, this thing might get out of control too. We don't know how many there are, but if they all show up at once, we could be in some deep shit. Storm Garcon had a very impressive debut against women's #1 contender at Heat, but was attacked by Thunder Kitty LaFleur. This was her chance to get revenge. Garcon, a great athlete with a lot of potential, isn't quite ready for a veteran like LaFleur, who eventually was able to submit Garcon. It was finally time for the main event and one of the most highly anticipated matches in IPW history. The former champion, who never lost the title, the infamous Jamal King, versus the IPW champion, Chad Alpha, in a ladder match. Without a doubt, the match of the year and easily one of the best in IPW history. Alpha and King absolutely beat the shit out of each other and destroyed tables, ladders, and chairs all throughout the Foaling Warehouse. In a match between two of the best, it can often be a game of inches. One small mistake can lead to the end, and that's exactly what happened. As King went to hit a high-risk move, he slipped, and Alpha capitalized, slamming King through a table on the outside and giving himself enough time to climb the top of the ladder, retrieve the belt, and finally silence any doubts as to who deserves to be called the IPW champion. After the match, a camera caught up with Jamal King.
You know what, Chad? You never beat me, Chad. You never even made me submit. Maybe tonight was your night. You got lucky. Congratulations. But I'll tell you one thing. I will be back, and I will be back with a vengeance, Chad. Just wait. I got something cooking up. Real nice. Just for you, and especially just for IPW.
That concludes this edition of The Insider. Join us this Saturday at Holmes Campus in Ann Arbor, Michigan, as IPW presents Forged in Fire.